Happy Friday, this is Drew Moore. We just received the USDA WASDE report for September, and today I have Michael Reginelli and Brian Basting to digest the market. So Brian, first question for you. What stood out to you on the balance sheet?
The yields did increase nationwide, Drew. We saw a big crop get slightly bigger. It may not be up to expectations as far as a record crop. However, USDA did increase the corn acreage in this report, and they may revise it again in October, but they did reduce the acreage for soybeans in this report. Again, those numbers may be revised yet again in October, so that's a wild card. But as we move forward here, we're looking at an increase in corn carryout from last month and a modest increase in bean carryout from last month.
Perfect, thank you, Brian. Michael, with what Brian just said, what cash implications does that have to the market right now?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to kind of get our hands around it. We've seen front-end corn bases come off quite a bit here recently,
right,
but we've actually started to see it come up on the back end quite a bit when you get out into March and the May time frame, kind of in that post-harvest. Once we get the corn and bean crop put away, those time slots, we're starting to see values increase a little bit. So there's a number of factors that we're absolutely going to have to watch as we go forward. Not all of them were reconciled in this report specifically. It's going to depend a lot on pace of China buying, pace of China demand. It's also going to center a lot around farmer selling. We've taken 85 cents out of December corn in the past 4 weeks coming into harvest. It's about the exact opposite of what we saw last year when we saw the market rally,
right,
and farmers turned over a significant portion of corn and beans into commercial hands. This year it's going to look a little different. So if we have lower amounts of farmer selling, obviously, and the demand pool picks up a bit as we work our way through harvest, that could inflate basis values as we kind of move forward.
Sure, that makes sense. Brian, looking into next spring, we've seen a few private estimates on planting intentions, ranging from a 2 to 3% increase in corn acreage and a 4 to 5% increase in soybean acreage. Looking at today's numbers, how does that come into effect for your perception of market share next year?
It's a story that's yet to be written, of course, Drew, but as we sit here today in mid-September, I think there is a bias toward a higher number for 2022, but we'll start seeing higher acreage numbers in South America this fall. USDA did bump up Argentina production for 2021-2022 by 2 million tons today.
Okay.
So they'll get the first shot at this 21-22, actually next year's crop, the 22 crop. But I think today, maybe the USDA is, with the numbers today, maybe is guiding a little bit more toward the soybean acreage for 2022, but it's so early here in mid-September. What I would encourage the viewers to think about here, in my opinion, the most important thing about 2022 is defending your balance sheet, because those input costs and cash rents are certainly going higher.
Absolutely, absolutely. Michael, we've started to see some anecdotal yield reports out of the field, ranging from happy to pleased to discouraged, from 150 to 300 across the Midwest and the South right now. What do you think with the USDA printing a 176.3 today? Is that fair? Or?
I think it's pretty fair. Our yield model, Brian and his research team coming into this report was slightly higher, I believe, or slightly lower, 176, I believe. So higher than the previous USDA estimate. This gets the USDA closer to in line with what we were thinking. Given the early stuff that we're seeing, I think it's probably too early to tell, but it's likely pretty fair too. Now, everything's still pretty high moisture coming off in Illinois. There's some people that are thrilled. We're expecting a record crop in a lot of counties. Others are kind of saying maybe the top end's off a little bit. They're a little bit discouraged in some of what the quote-unquote good production areas that we've seen in the early stages. I would guess that levels out as we move forward.
Sure.
I think one of the big center points is going to be once the western belt really starts ramping up, northern Iowa, western Minnesota, once we get kind of into the plains, where there's been well-documented issues, kind of how that crop develops will probably kind of be our guiding light for what the final yields really going to be, but pretty fair overall.
Okay, perfect. Last question, Brian. What stood out on the wheat balance sheet to you, or what are your thoughts on the wheat complex?
Market right now, Drew, is focusing on Southern Hemisphere, specifically Argentina and Australia. USDA did increase Australia crop 1.5 million tons. Now that's going to help offset some of these smaller crops worldwide, including that smaller crop in Russia and the smaller crop in Canada. USDA cut another 1 million tons off Canada today. So that would be the third largest crop ever in Australia. But they did reduce Argentina by 500,000 tons. So those crops are yet to be made here in September and October. Critical to watch Australia and Argentina. I would remind the viewers, however, that Thinking ahead to 2022, our bias is we're going to see an increase in Northern Hemisphere winter wheat acreage this fall, weather permitting, of course, with a crop insurance price being set right now at a 9-year high.
Perfect. Thank you both for your time today. We've got a fairly mixed report overall as of this recording, and good luck, and let us know if any questions.